you have this initial kind of thing where the founders are there, they know what they're doing, they've got a vision. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to get it to any stage at all. But there is a point where, and it will probably hit founders at different times depending on their background and experience, where they are literally right. Okay, we're banging up now against what we know. Hello. So one of the things that we've been thinking about recently is the concept of leveling up as a company. Generally, your teams, the product that you're producing, the way you communicate, that kind of stuff. And often I think when you look at successful, I'm not saying that we're an example of this, but when you look at successful scale-ups, you quite often think, well, the reason they've been successful is because the founders are somehow innately brilliant, or they're just very, very lucky. And in reality, it probably isn't that. It's probably that they're, and this might be driven by imposter syndrome, incidentally, but in the reality is that they probably have been pretty good at leveling up both themselves and their teams. So we're going to just talk a little bit about that today, about how we've kind of approached this, how it's dawned on us that we needed to level up. And I guess how at every stage of a scale up, you kind of realize that you've reached the limits of your experience specifically, and you need to mitigate that, because if you've only ever experienced, let's say, a company running a company at $1 million and you're hurtling towards $10 million or $20 million, clearly you're going to be in this situation where you've never done this before, and there's going to be lots of things that you need to know. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, how we've done it and what we're doing. And yeah, anything to kick us off there, Mark, on that one?
So I think, as with most of these things, it's complicated, right? There's the inner historian coming in me here, which is like, yes, but, no, but, which is the answer to every history essay. If anyone ever did history at college, you get asked a question and it's literally yes, but, no, but, and that's the only answer. But then you spend 8,000 words explaining why. So that's hopefully not going to be 8,000 words today. But I think leveling goes visually, so I'll have to, I guess, describe it. I think leveling starts high. I'm assuming that the startup isn't a joke, right? I'm going to make this startup. It's not a shit startup. It's not a startup which shouldn't exist, which a lot of them are. Like, one that really has the capability of being $100 million business, right? So from the outset, the level is high, right? Because there's talent there, right? And then that level stays fairly high. Then I think that level drops down. Then I think that level comes back up and exceeds the first level. So it's the classic kind of graph of, actually it's kind of the same graph of knowledge of like, I feel really good, I know what I'm doing. Oh my God, I just realized I'm a complete amateur. Oh. And then you slowly go up the other end. And I'll explain why. So the initial team of founders, like, is talented, right? No question about it, right? Because they are one of the deserving few that can build $100 million business, which is one of the hardest things. Like, and so few people on earth can do it. So the talent's there, right? Their instincts are strong. They understand it. They know their product. They know their market, and they're good at executing, right? The initial team that they pull in around them is also equally talented, and actually, you know, in many ways will be better than them in certain disciplines and things like that, because your initial team is people you already know predominantly or can convince from your network, right? It's not a protracted, long, recruitment process, because joining that startup at that point, you'd only do it if you really knew what you were getting into, right? So you got this initial halo effect of the core team that gets you going, of talent, right? And then yes, you are a bit cash strapped and stuff like that. So as you bring in your first employees on, they probably will be early career employees, but again, they will be people where they've got no experience, but the talent is there, the intellect is there, and their exposure, like the radiation exposure to that founding team, that core build team, is extraordinary. So those people, even with zero experience, suddenly become very, very good because they're shadowing the founder in every sales phone call, because they're literally talking to the person who devised the entire system and concept of the product when they're asking product related questions. So they're getting literally gold back into them, and that goes into their bodies, and they level up at extraordinary pace, right? Because they've got because in fairness to them, because they've got the capability to, right? So suddenly that early team is mega strong. Then I think things start to get difficult, because you're still not at a stage where you can attract experienced talent that doesn't know you that well. Like, you don't have the money, and you don't really have the need or even the appeal, or even the risk profile for experienced VPs to actually come in and say, yeah, I want to be part of this, because frankly, they've got better options at that point. Why take the risk? So then you're basically adding more people. And it's not to say they're not talented. Like, they're probably equally talented. But what you then don't have, when you have this problem, is this trickle-down effect. Because the founders cannot literally go and one-on-one with 40 people, 50 people, right? It's not possible, right? And so they're learning secondhand. And anything secondhand is never as good as the first, right? So, full exposure, the best exposure you can get. The secondhand version, you've got to lop off 30%. That's where confusion sets in. That's where kind of, is that quite how it works, or does it work more like that? Or, that secondhand stuff. So that's where things start to kind of come off the rails a little bit, but maybe just, but still fairly good. And, what you hope is that over time and a bit more time exposure, that 30% deficit suddenly gets removed away. Sorry, you're getting a full-on rant. It'll basically be a 10-minute podcast from me and a 10-minute podcast from David.
Yeah.
But I'm flowing with it. I'm going with it. Okay. And so that's okay. That's okay. I've lost your camera. I don't know if do we use on YouTube anymore? It might not matter. Anyway, I'm now just ranting at myself like a true madman.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Then the next issue is you go, okay, well, now you're getting to 40, 50 people. Right. The osmosis effect is no longer right. We need to start to create teams. We need to start form those teams into things. Then you get into your second problem around leveling up, which is you create silos so the little teams themselves actually get some structure and get a bit less chaotic, a bit more planning, a bit more organized. But then you lose this... The interlinking that was naturally there between teams, because you're now starting to kind of define roles better, and again there's a drop there. There's any time it crosses a boundary, a ball gets sort of dropped. And so basically in terms of like the level, and it's not about the individuals as such. It's actually really never about the individuals, unless they're just not good enough, of course. It's about the organization and how it's working and what they're exposed to, and then that is another chunk down. So you're probably at your lowest ebb about 3 years in, because, and then you hope that you've now, regardless of all that slight, like in many ways you're better because you've got more people, and that's more resource, more talent in terms of different skill sets and stuff. But as an organization, you're a bit all over the shop, to be honest. But hopefully at that point you've clung on well enough and got through it to now actually be attractive, both to investors, so you've got some more money, and as a business, a bit more like proven out, so you can then start to go right back to the top again and start to build and flesh out a leadership team, which hopefully is experience of what's coming next, because the other problem you're hitting now is that the founders are now reaching the end of what they may have seen before.
Yeah, that was a key thing that I was going to say, is like, you have this initial kind of thing where the founders are there, they know what they're doing, they've got a vision, otherwise they wouldn't have been able to get it to any stage at all. But there is a point where, and it will probably hit founders at different times depending on their background and experience, where they are literally, right, okay, we're banging up now against what we know, and that's obviously why you would then bring in more experienced VPs who are specialists. Our investors always say to us, like, ideally you want to find someone who's done what you're going to do over the next 2 years. They've already done that, and they can come in and bring some of that experience back into the company.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, hello real world.
It's not easy.
Yeah. And when theory and reality meet, isn't it fun? But you never get exactly what you want. Like, there just isn't a big enough pool of people who've literally done what you've done just before, want to do it again, because so
and in our experience,
some compromise there. But
and in our experience, that's not the silver bullet that it originally sounds either.
No, because we've hired people who literally on paper fit that bill, and they've been a disaster, right? Like, so it is an art, not a science, and that's where I genuinely, I have some misgivings of the VC world, especially if they're non-operators, because the advice is solid, it's right, but you've got to like actually have that hit reality. It's the kind of old, everyone has a plan so they get punched in the face kind of thing. It's been going around quite a lot recently. But like, you can have your ideal profile, and then you've got what the market's giving you, right? Like, who's available now, who's interested, who's got the passion for your vision, who wants to do what you do. Location, but maybe not so much of a big deal now, but still something to do with it. And it's a very competitive market as well. So and even someone, you could still have someone who's excellent and not a right fit. So yeah, it's really it's interesting. But yeah, I mean, just to kind of finish off my rant, really was more like, when you get to that VP thing, that is where you go through, and I think that's where the leveling up truly comes in, because it's a chance for the founders, which is basically the C level, to suddenly take stock and not be running at 90 miles an hour just trying to get everything done, and actually go and look and take a comprehensive look at each team and go, where do we need to improve, either by bringing new people in, training people up, or sadly, in reality, moving people on who maybe the business has outgrown, or maybe just kind of, basically just aren't really kind of being productive or pulling their weight. It's just reality, right? And that is tough, right? Emotionally kind of tough as well, doing those things. But it's also fulfilling, because when you see how you can bring people up, and ideally, like, you've got people in there, you want them to succeed, right? So first and foremost, the priority's got to level up the people, like to inspire them to push more, to learn more, to take some of their own risk, to try something that they're maybe nervous to try and see if they can. Because the answer shouldn't always be bring in someone new. That shouldn't always be it. In fact, there should be sort of almost like the last answer. It's like, what can we do with what we've got? Okay, this is good. Where do we need to augment that now?
Yeah, and one of the criticisms that's often leveled at founders is, or anyone really in a management situation in a scale-up kind of business, is you don't know what great looks like until you've actually seen it. So if you've gone and worked with, I don't know, if you worked in Amazon or something, or Apple or something, you might have seen some examples of truly great teams working in an incredible way, and you might not have done as a founder. And it's a really difficult thing to be leveled at as a founder as well, when someone says, well, you haven't got the experience to know what great looks like, but you know what, you need to know what great looks like, otherwise you're not going to be able to level up beyond where you are. And I think that's often a difficult challenge to know. You don't know what you don't know. So your experience, where you're saying, the experience you just described earlier, you're looking at a particular team and going, is this great? Is this a great team? And actually, do I even know what a great team looks like? I think that's often quite a difficult challenge. And obviously bringing VPs in is a great way of doing that, because if they said, well, look, when I worked at whoever company, this is how we did it, and we managed to achieve X, Y, and Z. That's brilliant. But I also think as founders, we need to be able to speak to other people that have done that and been there, and kind of become like a sponge in sort of sucking up that knowledge and working out what great looks like for us and for our teams.
Yeah, no, I think that's hard, especially in disciplines where you don't have any operational experience yourself. So, for me, that was historically the people side of it, or where I had experience but only SMB experience. Hiring a few people, but not really having a fully fledged people kind of function. We've never had that before. Most small companies can't really afford to. not to the level that we've got. I mean, we have 6 people in our people team supporting 100. I mean, that's quite a big team, really. We've got internal recruitment. No small companies have internal recruiters. So yeah, for me that was difficult, and we notoriously kind of made a few mistakes there. Really. Oh, you're back, or maybe it was me. I don't know. Maybe you were always there. I can see you now. And I think that's where honestly, sadly, it takes a couple bites of the cherry. Normally, that's like the most painful thing. I hate wasting time, but we've all done it. Right.
Well, one of those cliches is that that your first VP of sales, get it out of the way because you'll make a bad hire. I don't think that's happened in our case, but like that's it's a cliche within the SaaS world of like, you get your VP of sales hire out of the way because the first one will be a disaster. I mean, this is a little bit unfair, but you can see the sentiment there.
It's kind of true, really. It's like when I'm teaching new material, like the first run through, like it doesn't matter how much I've learned it or how much I've really practiced and recited it all in my head and stuff. The first time it touches reality and I go and teach it in a class, sometimes it goes really well. Like sometimes it actually goes really well. Sometimes it's really bad. And I always say to the class, I'm like, new material time. This is like the first pancake, right, out the frying pan. Sometimes it's edible. Sometimes it goes straight in the bin. And I really, really, unfortunately, it's just true. You've just got to get through your first time, and you might get lucky and get it right, and that's great. But recognize that there's a degree of luck in it, and the next time you might not be so lucky, and it's burned and going straight in the bin. And it's not easy at all. But there are some things you can do, and I think this is where, which has not been as easy in the pandemic, right? Because let me explain what it is first. I think that the best thing you can do is to know and experience and be around other companies at your stage and beyond. So this is probably one of the things which I think there is some merit in a truly good, working with a truly good VC, is the quality of their portfolio is high. And therefore, there are people that you can reach out to and around you who are like of your caliber or beyond your caliber. Like, certainly true. I think that some in 0.9 are pretty spectacularly good. And you can kind of like, by seeing them, it's like having an older sibling, right? You can kind of look at them and sort of, mirror them or try and kind of take their advice or take their lead or just take their example. They've set the standard and you kind of get a sense of that. And I think that that's really important. Now, the reason I said it's harder in the pandemic is like, I already do so much Zoom. So the idea of doing some more networking on Zoom just makes me want to like weep. But back in real life, like that would have been the times you've gone to sort of a meetup or something, or gone to that kind of conference. You've got to be selective about who you're meeting up with. But like those times, I've never ever felt more clear advice and more a sense of like knowing what I don't know than when I've surrounded myself with other founders who really know their stuff and are a bit further along. They give you straight. They give you absolutely straight. No, like, well, the book says this, because fuck the book, frankly. Like, what's real life actually tell us?
Yeah, I literally, before I jumped into this call, I was watching. There was a talk that was being given by someone from the Point 9 family. It was Matt Hodges, who
the Loom guy,
Loom guy, but he was always talking about pricing and packaging and what sort of went through what they did with Intercom. And how they evolved their pricing and packaging, and like obviously it's not like, oh yeah, we're going to copy what you guys did, but it's so valuable just hearing someone talk about some of the processes that went through, and like, yeah, we did some of that, or we've done some of that, but yeah, we probably could do with a little bit more thought around this. And I think it's those sorts of insights. It's not like, as we said earlier, it's not one silver bullet that will make you better, but it's kind of like, yeah, almost a bit like when we said at the beginning, like when someone joins a startup and they're kind of getting these nuggets of gold from the founders, and they're like, you wouldn't get that. You wouldn't get that by going to university and studying entrepreneurship. You would only get that really from kind of working at the coalface. And I think it's the same thing. If you can surround yourself with people who've who've done one part of something that you need to do, but done it really, really well and successfully, and just see what you can learn and how that applies to you. But I think that the real key thing, I think, the big difference, I think, between perhaps success and failure is that willingness to learn, and that acknowledgement that no matter how brilliant you think you are, or how many years experience you've got, you don't know shit, or you don't know everything. Yeah. There probably are some people that start businesses who think, you know what, I'm just an entrepreneur. When you watch things like The Apprentice,
I've recently joined bigging themselves up. I've met quite a few in there.
Yeah,
it's like this whole tiny teeth and very weird kind of and they're all like, I want to make a 6-figure business in 1 month selling courses. Yeah. I've got a course to sell. Oh my god, they're awful.
I've got 150% effort, and I'm gonna make you a billionaire. Trust it. It's all these kind of things. It's like platitudes. It's like, well, yeah, but frankly, have you ever done it? And you can have as much. Yeah, you can have as much self-belief as possible, but unless you're really, really willing to learn and be humble about it, and say, look, actually, you know what? You're not fucking brilliant, and actually nobody is. We've all got stuff to learn, and that's for me is one of the enjoyable parts of the job, is actually learning.
Very, very good point, right? Because I think, genuinely the best entrepreneurs, right, of all of them that I've ever met, the top AAA class, they are a perfect balance between confidence and humbleness, right? And the thing is that most of these kind of Dragon's Denny type entrepreneurs, or the ones in Clubhouse kind of telling you all the secrets and selling you courses and this, they over-index on the confidence, but humbleness. Well, actually, no, it's not even a balance of that. And you've just got to be actually just good at what you do. But I'm kind of taking that one for granted. That's kind of the table stakes. You can't get in the club unless you're actually good at what you do. And then it's that confidence and humbleness, because the humbleness isn't because not to make you a bit of so that you're not annoying at a dinner table. It's actually, the humbleness is a constant reminder that there is a universal level of knowledge that will never ever get into your brain to the right degree, and you've just got to keep pulling those nuggets out. The overconfidence makes you feel like you've already learned it all, and that is the fool, right? The fool is that person. I think there's another thing which I'm getting better at it, but I've always struggled with it, which is really honest conversations. Because that's another part of this, right? That you need to. Part of leveling up is actually just identifying it and talking about it, and actually saying, this isn't good enough, right? We know this isn't good enough. It's not a blame game. It's not trying to make an abusive culture. None of that. It's about actually, because if you're too nice about it, you never fix it, because you've got to help people identify and say, look, and shine a light on it and say, look, this isn't the level. Maybe it was the level, and that's also where it gets very painful. Is kind of was the level before, it's not the level now, because the businesses, they're growing so quickly, and they're moving through stages, in a year, like a rapid transformational change in 1 year. There's not time to hang around. That means, really, you've got about every quarter, you need to be kind of making an adjustment and coming up on a level, and you see it, right? And it's so, to me these days, it's so clear as day who gets stuck at a level and doesn't progress, and who starts to move beyond it. And it doesn't mean you want to just slice people out straight away. You want to give those people who are stuck, you want to dig in and see, where can we help, where can we dislodge it so you carry on. But sometimes it just becomes abundantly clear that that's kind of just where their level is. And then you've got to make room, right? You got to that seat is valuable, and you need to switch it out. And historically, we've always been rubbish at this. Now I'm there. Maybe it's been a year of brutal COVID has kind of toughened me up.
But I suppose it's also how tough you are on yourself as well, and how happy you are to hear those things about you as well as the people that you're managing. Yeah,
totally. I mean, it's self-awareness,
which I think is
criticism.
it's difficult.
It's there. It's
nobody likes it. Right, on that bombshell,
Yeah, well, yeah.
we do need to wrap up because we're all under time limits today. But yeah, there you go, leveling up. That's what we think.
Power rant.
Yeah. All right, till next time.